So we'll be talking about empirical imperialism in the Tartary series. Um, like I've said before, thank you so much for watching my videos. If you can like, share, and subscribe, that does wonders for me. I appreciate it. Also, wanted to clarify the Mudflood channel is the Canadian who makes the most succinct videos, and I recommend checking his channel out and subscribing. There is a Reddit channel now, r/Tartarian architecture, and it is small, but it is growing. I have also started a Facebook group called Ptah Hotep's Tartarian Nova Trading Post, and you can find this by looking for Tartarian Nova. Also, Facebook/Ptabro will get you there pretty fast, and there's already a few thousand members. So thanks for watching my videos. We're going to talk a bit about America and the name, and Giovanni Caboto, or John Cabot, or as he was known in Venice in his lifetime to his friends, Zwan Ciabato. And Zwan is, I guess, the John of Venice. And yes, this is his face. Earlier, I posted the Ptah group. I've chosen the J letter of Cyrillic for Hotep, so it would be easier to find for Cyrillic alphabet seekers. But also, I found it interesting that his name was Zwan, and Szechuan comes from this. So, also, this is Zwan's house. You can see evidence of, an understory. And this is the other option for the name of America, Amerigo Vespucci or Vespucci, whom is also a Spaniard, Italian, a Castile. So then, last time we were talking about how after Krakatoa, an entire civilization was wiped out, hundreds of thousands of people dead, everything dead in sight, except not, because there was Roger Verbeek. Verbeek is a pretty, there's not a lot of information about him. He's born April 7th. He's from the Netherlands. He worked for the Dutch East India Trading Company in Indonesia. But he's the guy who somehow went on a rowboat to Krakatoa, only for a few minutes, of course. But he saw it, and then he left. And then there's, of course, the book by Alan Bailey about the Krakatoa Lighthouse, because, there was a lighthouse, and it's still there, the Fourth Estate Lighthouse, and someone supposedly survived in the lighthouse. There's a video, like a National Geographic, I think, made about Krakatoa, and it's essentially this concept that this man and this guy in his lighthouse survived underwater, and then they were immediately famous and made lots of money, but like more money than anybody ever, lots of money, like crazy amounts of money. And yeah, this lighthouse, the Fourth Point Lighthouse, it was submerged underwater, and it was right, there under. This is just, yeah, it's insane because he was there for 30 days. Like, okay, but yeah, here's the lighthouse. A super cool lighthouse. Don't get me wrong. So these are the traders of the Lost Archives, the Universal Trading Company, right? Universal Trading Company, the Dutch East Indies and West Indies Trading Company. The Occidental Universal, I don't know. Here's a recap of trivia I wanted to mention. Last time we talked about Andrea Palladio and whether or not he actually studied Vitruvius and the Vitruvian Man from Leonardo da Vinci, and we think about how that could be, like, Leonardo da Vinci talks a lot about, like, femininity and androgyny, and, well, maybe trivia, like, the electrical systems that Asteria had that ended up in the war that became Panzer tanks and were originally homemade tanks of the Civil War, and the electric systems that they had invented probably came from Tartaria. Well, let's get into steam power, because the electric steamers of the 19th century are fantastic, and they don't really require coal, they just require steam. And so I propose that they were electric. Now, there are lots of examples of steam powered electric things. Nuclear generators are steam powered, and nuclear itself is a steampunk technology. And they want you to convince you that it's dangerous, of course, like oil companies and whatever. Like, I mean, anybody. Like, it's really a safe, simple thing that you can produce a amount of heat that then produces pressure, and the water pressure then feeds off of this regulated cold water to hot water, then spins turbines, which produce electricity and generate energy. So we have examples of this that are abound. Here's a Swiss electric steam train. Here's a General Electric steam train. God, that's a beautiful steam train. And here's, an exploded boiler, and you start seeing like what happens when they don't know how to run an electric steam train. Like, they start putting coal on it because it's intuitive that you can heat up steam and electricity to heat up water to make steam. It's a natural progression. Steam power and electric power. Here's the LMS Princess Royal Electric Steam Engine, but it's also just so beautiful, right? Like, I believe LMS stands for like London Midland Scotland rail system. I think that's what it is. So this is a British rail. So all these trains were used to get gold and silver and salt from places. Here's the salt flats in Bolivia in Uni, where there's a graveyard of these steam-powered trains. And I've been there, and there's just miles of them, and you can climb all over them. No one's going to stop you. There's nothing else out there really besides harmonic frequency patterns of these hexagonal salt crystals that you can just for miles. But these trains, right? Like, just look at these beautiful cast iron machines that are just abandoned here, and compare them to the Tribune electric rail systems. So that gets us back into the west of the Red Roman Empire and the Spanish Castile Habsburg Empire, the Hispanic Germanics. And we talked about how Hispania does not mean the bread. It means something in Iberian to the effect of the metal civilization, which makes sense. And Habsburg family, the Bohemian family of Elizabeth Valois, who was she was Parisian or French, and then her son was Bohemian. Well, France had very little power during this time because of, apparently they probably did. Let's think about Charlemagne slightly differently before he converted to the Roman Empire's Catholicism. I assume France was very powerful. However, it was maybe less global at this time. The Roman Empire also limited in a sense, but you can see where it was strengthened. But the black nobility of Eastern Europe, is separate, and so you can see how the Spanish Habsburg Empire was just huge. Italy is split. North Italy is Germain. South Italy is Spanish Germain. So Germain Spain also is not one place. It's like the United States at best. It's more like Switzerland. You've got people that speak different languages everywhere, though. In the northwest, you've got Galatians. In the northeast, or the center, I guess you could say, you have the Basque state, which is in Spain and in France, and ought to be its own state, really. It is essentially, and it should be. Then there's the Valencia, which, just look how close it is to the Byzantine Empire. And there's just a lot of trade going on at this point with the Moors in the southeast, and there's a route called the Camino de Santiago. An important book to consider is A Song of Ronan, which really compares the Arabs and the Europeans on levels where the poor are with the poor on either side and the rich are with the rich on either side. The Templars and the Ottomans are the same. Here's the DNA of Germanic Italians, and notice the vibrancy of high concentration in the north. Also, the spot, where something happened. and has the RZ36 phenotype is limited in the south, which is another interesting aspect. So it shows that there is a very specifically Germane Italy, and here is the South Germane city. You know, these are Italian Alpine cities. So Italy had at one point been actually where that red begins, and after World War II, when Germany was forced to return lands, everyone had to show the maps. Italy had made false maps that showed they were a much grander sized state than they had been, and even though the people up there still speak German, they're Italians now. So here's some Tartarian architecture. And here's the dominion of the Habsburg family, spread out across Transylvania. At a certain point, the United Empire is just so expansive that it covers all of Spain, but also all of northern Germanic regions such as the Netherlands. The Huguenots are included in this, and the Dutch, which leads to the 80-Year War and the Dutch East Indies Trading Company. And of course, Ferdinand and Isabella, this is an interesting, beautiful Ferdinand and Isabella from the Netherlands, or not Ferdinand and Isabella from Spain, or are they? I mean, supposedly they're not, but something interesting to look into slightly more. I mean, I'm not suggesting they are yet, but that is an interesting correlation, and that they were run out of town for their control of the Netherlands. Also, the Netherlands was considered the land over there that was run by itself. It rather bothered the Spanish Empire. And here was Alexander, the Duke, and he ran the Netherlands. Also notice that Ferdinand is drawn to be kind of a schmuck. I'm not sure a better word. He just doesn't look super assertive, and his wife ends up giving the kingdom keys to her handsome Croatian friend, Christopher Columbus. Also, here's the Habsburg crest, and I think we've gone over this. It's the dragon with the peacock figures, and from 1568 to 1648 in Holland was the war of the 80-Year War, which led to the secession of Holland from Spain, and also in this time was the looting of the churches of Lyon, and a great period of iconoclasm. When the churches were looted, the symbols were taken down. This could be an interesting time to look for devastation of Tartaria because of the iconoclasm. I mean, we see the Bildenstorm of 16th century, the building storm, where people just went around tearing things apart and looting statues. And if you go to some of these churches that haven't been looted in certain places, you'll find horned statues of gods that are Athenian in Catholic churches still. So it's clear that these churches were not always well, I don't know if it's clear that they were not always religiously Christian, but it's interesting that they presuppose that they were built at a time when they did not understand the Bible, and therefore they had all sorts of symbols for non-biblical and perhaps pagan. Also, Spanish pillaging of gold and the stamping and minting of coinage led to the inflation of gold and its value being worth less than silver. People had enough gold, and they said, "All right, I got enough gold. Do you have any silver?" I mean, that literally went down at some point, which shows how much gold there was, and also how little gold there was before that. Also interesting is the father of Francois again. So here are some personal seals, and they eventually become representative of the kingdom's wealth itself. And notice the Arabic writing on the backside of the East India coinage, and the the fractional rupee of copper coins. Eventually, paper money replaces these coinages, but not until the Dutch East India Company. And it's interesting that Marco Polo talks about paper money before this, but these written receipts really start again with corporatism. And we're supposed to believe that all of this information that the porters had grabbed from the Library of Alexandria, such as the Camera Obscura, and anything else from the Hellenistic wisdoms of engineers, such as the Hero steam engine, was just repurposed in Arabia, in like a flea market. So we'll be talking about empirical imperialism in the Tartary series. Like I've said before, thank you so much for watching my videos. If you can like, share, and subscribe, that does wonders for me. I appreciate it. Also started a Facebook group called Ptah Hotep's Tartarian Nova Trading Post, and you can find this by looking for Tartarian Nova.